Hi, I'm James Hackney, Dean of the Law School. So, thank you. Welcome to Alumni Weekend and Reunions 2025. Oh boy, okay. A special acknowledgement to the class of 1975 on their 50th reunion. And I see my good friend Mary O'Connell, proud member of the class of 1975 and former faculty colleague. It's also a pleasure to recognize the presence of one of our founding faculty members, Steve Subrin. Steve. So as you know, while this law school doesn't put much stock in letter grades, we're always happy when high quality programs are recognized, even when that means it's in the form of A pluses. That's great, A pluses. Our small but mighty law school has received A plus rankings by Pre-Law Magazine and the National Jurist in the following areas: racial justice, human rights, intellectual property, and health law, and has been recognized as one of the top schools for women in leadership. Thank you, Neil. In addition, we have been recognized as #1 for practical training, #2, should be #1, for public interest law, and #9 for healthcare law. Of course, these honors correlate with our centers of excellence. In addition, I'm pleased to note our 90.91, the 0.91 is important, pass rate for first-time bar takers in Massachusetts this July. And of special note, our first cohort of 12 online Flex JD students passed 12 out of 12. That means 100%. Very excited about that. So you make this all possible. Gifts that support our students and our mission-driven work, such as the programs you will hear about tonight, provide important resources for our achievements. A special thanks to everyone in this room who has made a gift in honor of your reunion, and to our reunion committees for all of your hard work, time, energy, and presence. Also, special recognition to our alum board chair, Lennox Chase. Lennox, for his leadership, and to the entire alum board. The generosity of our graduates, you, empowers us to train our students to be the best lawyers in the nation and serve the crucial needs of those who require legal assistance, including through the signature programs you will hear about tonight: the Civil Rights and Restorative Justice Project, the Immigrant Justice Clinic, whose remarkable work at the San Diego border was highlighted in our most recent law magazine. Yeah. And the Domestic Violence Clinic, the recent recipient of a significant philanthropic gift. Tonight, you will be treated to a discussion on curricular developments, training, innovation, and most importantly, the real world impact with our impressive trifecta of teachers, Margaret Burnham, Hemanth Gundavaram, and Hayat Bearat. So now I hand it off to Jennifer Huer, Assistant Dean for Centers, Programs, and Institutes to moderate. Jennifer?
Thank you, Dean Hackney, and thank you for everybody who was so involved in planning this weekend's fantastic event. So Miel and Julianne and Ayana and Lindsay, I saw her. I know Deborah had involvement, and I'm sure I'm missing somebody, but thank you so very much. And thanks for inviting all of us to take part. Super excited about this. So let me just give you a quick rundown. We're going to start off with some introductions. We'll introduce everybody, and then we're going to move into the presentations, followed by what may or may not be a quick or lengthy, depending on the questions that you all have and the answers that our amazing speakers give. But before we jump into the official introductions, I am super excited to welcome Sally Wolf from the class of 1980. I hear that you are celebrating your 45th reunion. Super exciting. Sally's joining us from Seattle, Washington, and she's actually going to start off the introductions tonight because she has been such an amazing supporter and friend to Professor Margaret Burnham and the Civil Rights and Restorative Justice Project. So Sally, I'm going to hand it off to you really quickly.
Isn't this fun? So great. It's weird that it doesn't feel that different from 45 years ago, right? I mean, that's just a little weird. Anyway, it's just my pleasure to have this opportunity to introduce Margaret Burnham to you. Many of you know her and know of her work, but just in case you don't, I'm going to fill you in a little bit. I met Margaret when I was in my 20s. I was a paralegal at Prisoners' Rights Project in Boston. It was tough, gritty, and often demoralizing work. Conditions in the state prisons were deplorable. Many of you have done this work and you know what I'm talking about. Prisoners were denied rights to lawyers, hearings, mail, visitors, and on and on. And Prisoners' Rights Project was one of the few advocates for people in the state who were behind bars. Margaret, who began her career at the NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund in New York City, was working for a small civil rights firm here in Boston, and was often outside counsel to Prisoners' Rights Project. I got to sit when the lawyers were at the table discussing cases because I was on staff, and they invited all the paralegals and secretaries and anybody who wanted to come and sit at these discussions. I don't know how many people took advantage of it, but I did. And I got to sit there while the staff attorneys reviewed strategies for winning these civil rights and due process cases. Many clients were on death row, the stakes were high, and I was deeply, deeply moved consistently by Margaret's courage, by your brilliant legal mind, and her commitment to winning cases that would uphold the law, create new laws, and give people a fighting chance for dignity and honor and hope. Now, as you've been reading, as University Distinguished Professor of Law, Margaret teaches, she founded and directs the Civil Rights and Restorative Justice Project. She's co-director of the Center for Law, Equity, and Race, and has had contact with hundreds of colleagues around the country who are following in her footsteps. It's truly inspiring. And she's written the most amazing book, award-winning, by hands now known, Jim Crow's Legal Executioners. Thank you. And if you haven't had a chance to catch this book, I want you to. You need to pick up a copy. The first time I read it, it was so hard going. I had to form a study group, and we got 3 other people together, and that's how we made it through. But it will change your life. You know, you'll feel closer to Margaret, and your life will be different. Margaret, we had lunch together today, and she told me that when she was in law school, this was very moving, Margaret, that she was of the law, that she knew she would stay with the law, and that the people around her would also be of the law. And I think that's what we've seen in her work, but what she may not have known is how many people she would bring along with her on that journey. She has had a profound influence on law students, scholars, policymakers, organizers, as they seek justice for crimes of racial violence, as they reach further than they think they can, as they find courage to work for making something right. So I'm really, really glad you're here, and I'm glad you'll have a chance to meet Margaret and hear some of her stories.
Thank you so much, Sally. I'm going to introduce our other 2 speakers, and then Margaret, I invite you to come on up for your presentation. So following Margaret Burnham will be Hemanth Gundavaram, who is our Associate Dean for Academic and Faculty Affairs. He also serves in the capacity of the Director of Clinical Programs, as well as the director and co-founder of the Immigrant Justice Clinic. So super excited. And then wrapping it all up will be Hayat Bearat, who joins us as an associate clinical professor of law, and she is the director of the Domestic Violence Institute. So cannot wait to hear more from all of you. But first up, Margaret, if you'll join us.
Thanks so much, Shelby. And Sally, a virtual hug for you. Actually, Sally and I met earlier today. We had a chance to have a cup of tea together. And we were exchanging, you know, old stories. And she asked me how I got to law school and how I married the man I'm still married to. That was a long time ago. And she didn't tell this part of the story. And so I told her, well, I married this dude. He was in the back of the common law class. I was in the front. And I married him because I wanted to stay close to law. He was also cute. But yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Sally. You all look absolutely stunning. Is the photographer here? This is the picture, not this. That's the picture, and it is utterly a beautiful one. Every single one of you, from the 45 years to the 5 years, you just look really, really wonderful. And thank you so much for traveling from Barnstable or Baltimore or Cambridge, wherever you came from, to be in this room tonight. It is really just a joy to be back with family once again. And Sally, I want to thank you as well for your path-breaking work here in our own city. You worked with the Prisoners' Rights Project, the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, and the National Consumer Law Center. And so thank you for all that early work that you did. But in particular, thank you so much for your generous, steadfast, and meaningful contributions to our students, to this law school, and to its mission. Now, as Dean Hackney has said, the salience and importance of our school and its mission has been recognized with awards left, right, and center. You know, I want to say a few words about the place of our school in the world of legal education today. And then I do want to also say a few words about our program, the program that Deborah and I chair at the Center for Law, Equity, and Race. So first of all, today, folks, today, the dark days that we face, they, for me, reinforce every day the importance of the steps that our founders took, one of whom is here with us today. Their foresight, their wisdom, their brilliance, their courage to see that we needed this law school, that we needed a dedicated space in the landscape of law schools, a space that was dedicated to experiential education, that sent people out in the world of law while they were in school so they could get their hands dirty, make mistakes, and try to correct them, and to public interest and social justice. So I want to share first, before I get to my program, some of the approaches that my colleagues have taken to navigate these very dark skies that we face as a country, and how we try to teach and inculcate respect for the rule of law when that principle is in unprecedented and devastating ways completely up for grabs in ways that we could probably never imagine. Now, understandably, our students all wonder about what the future holds for them as lawyers, and nothing is new here. So I went to law school 60 years ago, and then I wondered, what does this profession hold for me? What can I do in it? How can I succeed in it? All of you, I'm sure, at one point in this building had that feeling of anxiety. But today, for our students, it is particularly challenging. For those who came here because they wanted to practice in the social justice arena, or because they wanted to do public interest lawyering, for them, they face a kind of fragility in the legal landscape that was not there for us, that we did not have to confront, that Sally and I certainly didn't confront when we went out there and got jobs easily in legal services. They're faced with not just seismic shifts in the legal landscape, but with a reality where rank lawlessness is disguised by our political leaders as constitutional fealty and cloaked in the language of legitimacy, and when authoritarianism is cloaked in the pretense of democracy. Having been here now for a quarter of a century in this building, I believe that we are well positioned to draw on our deep history as a school to navigate this moment, a time when we should be encouraging students to take law and legal process seriously, to sharpen their own expertise and to respect expertise, even as daily they come face to face with the outer limits of law in an authoritarian state. In some sense, this dichotomy that our students face today is not unlike what practicing lawyers face every day. We maximize the opportunities that the law provides to our clients. We protect them. We ensure thereby everybody's rights. We proceed with care and caution and minimize the risks, even as we look to enlarge legal openings and opportunities for the cases that we know will follow our own. So in this building, as you know, our approach to experiential education, including our LSSC program, our co-op programs, and our clinics, give us the kind of flexibility we need to expose students to differing and shifting threats to people's rights and to the rule of law. These are the programs that were designed to be nimble, to be close to the ground, to put lawyers in touch with social movements, community organizations, and in touch with lawyers who can model for them the kind of fearlessness, the kind of creativity and dedication that is so central to building the resistance upon which so much now depends. Without that resistance that our students are helping to build, without the political advocacy, the direct legal action, and the defense work to which lawyers are all key, without that, we all know what will likely happen. The courts will fold. The courts will declare themselves to be following the popular will unless we define what the popular will actually is. And if the court folds, well, then who knows what will come next. So in our classrooms, we guide our students and complex legal material and the ethical and civic obligations that define the profession, as we always have, conveying to them equality, integrity, the rule of law, justice, all of it. Even as we also open our classrooms to the threats, troubles, and tyrannies of the moment. And I want to just give you two examples. Professor Rachel Rosenblum has designed a pop-up course called Lawyering in the Times of Authoritarian Threats. It's a course that considers how legal communities in other times, in South Africa, for example, and in the Jim Crow South, what remedies they did, what paths they chose, what organizations they founded in order to defend people's rights. The course also looks at what lawyers today are doing to those who are most vulnerable, the trans community, immigrant communities, and those people affected by attacks on DEI. My second example comes from one of my favorite colleagues, Jeremy Paul. He teaches con law. And he has added to the standard fare that all of us got in law school from our con law textbooks, all sorts of new sources of law and legal analysis, including, well, the Trump executive orders, blogs from SCOTUS. You may be familiar with Kate Shaw. She's a professor at University of Pennsylvania Law School. She's got a fabulous blog called Strict Scrutiny. He introduces that. He introduces pleadings from the scores of federal cases that are challenging the administration, all so that the students are learning checks and balances, even while they're appreciating the ways in which checks and balances are being destroyed. They're learning about the rule of law, even as they learn about the administration's brazen violations of the rule of law, even as they contend with the arguments from this administration about fundamental, basic, deeply embedded principles like birthright citizenship. They're learning about attacks on the federal courts and judges by the administration. They're learning about the centrality of agency expertise and the evisceration of that expertise today. And they're learning about a thing called chilling effect and the First Amendment, even as they learn about the ways in which the media, universities, and law firms have capitulated. So all of this is with a view towards helping students embrace the challenge of these times in the context of the tools of legal analysis. We want them to consider what legal remedies might be out there. We want them to look at what courts could do and should do in these urgent times. Now, Jeremy, my friend, worried that by imposing all of this news of the day on students, he was overburdening them and that they would be overworked. But in fact, at the end of the day, his evaluations were, as they always are, off the charts. This is what students want. We're also learning, teaching students to historicize these events the law that they are learning about. So for example, if future lawyers don't understand the history of racial disparity and the history of racism in this country, they won't be well positioned or well equipped to remedy those problems today. So the history has to be part of what we teach, ever more important today. And that brings me, I know I'm getting the, I'm getting the hook. I know I'm getting the hook. I see it there. I see it in me. Almost done. So that brings me to just my last paragraph, which is our two projects that are comprise our Center for Law, Equity, and Race. My project, which Sally, thank you so much for your support over the years, was founded in 2007. It's the Civil Rights and Restorative Justice Project, and my sister-in-law, and here on the faculty, Deborah Ramirez. I'm sorry, Crim Law, folks. Anybody Crim Law? Deborah Ramirez? Deborah Ramirez's project is a criminal justice task force, which she founded about 10 years ago. Now, each of these projects works in tandem with communities seeking to confront the harms of our country's racialized criminal justice system. Our students at CRRJ investigate historical cases of racial violence, and the students have, I'm proud to say, created a whole new field in our country on this topic. There are now CRRJ projects all around the country. We started here. So we've worked with archivists and historians and government lawyers, prosecutors all over the country to capture this legal history. And that work is ever more important, as we all know, in light of the efforts to erase and distort and limit public access to these materials. And my dear sister, Deborah Ramirez, along with our students, has built a reentry program here in Massachusetts, a blue state, Massachusetts. Her program and others that we have the space to create here are models for the rest of the nation. That reentry program has diverted last year 723 people who would otherwise have been mass incarcerated, and who now, based on Deborah's program and the work of her students, receiving treatment and resources. So we're proud of these results. We are even prouder of our students now out there lawyering, practicing law, the students who produce these results. And all I can say, folks, is the work goes on. Thank you so much for all that you do, Alfred.
Thank you, Margaret. I'm doing something I thought I'd never do, which is I'm reading from my phone. This slide reminds me of something always. The longer you're at Northeastern, the more jobs they give you. Professor Bearat, you have something to look forward to. Thank you, Dean Hackney, Jennifer, Miel, and all of you for being here. I'm always so proud to speak at Alumni Weekend. I am embarrassingly not a Northeastern Law grad, and I know I'm so sorry. But it's something I really do always say to people during when we're recruiting, is that this is the law school I wish I had gone to. I see some of my colleagues who have been professors for a long time. When I first got here 13 years ago, I see Steve Suberin's here, Mary O'Connell, Margaret Burnham, who all took me under their wing and have really helped me grow in the roles that I've been in. So I'm just very thankful for all of them. I'm going to talk about experiential education and specifically the clinics. Now, my focus is on immigration, but I want to highlight the breadth of the work we're doing in experiential education. I'm the director of the clinical programs, following in the footsteps of Jim Rowan. Yeah, another mentor. To give you a sense of the clinics right now, we have 9 clinics. We just had this past week a record number of applications from students. Given the co-op program and only half of upper level students being on campus on a given semester, we had 197 applications to the clinics. In the past, it's been 50, 70. This is a massive number, and it's just showing how much the important work that clinics are doing is really resonating with students, and that the offerings we're providing are ones that they're getting meaningful experience from. Just to list a few off, we have, of course, the Civil Rights and Restorative Justice Clinic and the Domestic Violence Clinic that you'll hear about tonight, the Community Business Clinic, the Virtual Legal Advocacy Clinic, which is a new clinic that's completely online, meeting with students at night who are our Flex JD students. So to make sure that even students who are not on campus and not who are working during the day still get clinical experience. opportunities. We also have the intellectual property clinic, the family violence immigration practicum, the public health advocacy clinic that's run by Dick Daynard, that many of you know, and Mark Gottlieb, still teaching. I heard someone say that. The Immigrant Justice Clinic, and still, after all these years, the Prisoners' Rights Clinic. Wally Holohan recently retired, but Patty Guerin is continuing to run the clinic, and her current co-director is a former Prisoners' Rights Clinic student, Mia Teitelbaum. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this kind of cyclical nature and also the ways in which I think this community really provides mentorship to the next generation, teaching, supervision, and mentorship in a way that is the only path forward, right? When you think about the situations we're in, what paths forward do we have? It is making sure the next generation of law students, law graduates, and lawyers are educated and ready to take on the fight. The Immigrant Justice Clinic is the area I'm in. It's a difficult area to talk about. I am teaching a studio right now with undergrads and teaching them about immigrant justice along with the students here at the law school. One of the things we're trying to do with experiential program in the clinics, before I get into immigration, is leveraging artificial intelligence. I mean, there's a lot of things about artificial intelligence that are scary, that are things to be worried about. But one of the things in clinical legal education that we're able to do is give students, I watched a lot of sports, so we talk about reps, which is like practice. And typically in clinics, when you're just one professor and you have 8 students, you do one practice client interview, and then you send them off into the real one, sometimes not even one practice, you just send them off. But with AI, one of the things we're able to do is set up multiple client interviews where they're interviewing kind of using previous clinic clients. They're interviewing and going through a mock client interview with many different bots, in addition to the one that's managed and run by students and teaching assistants. So that's something we're trying to do to get students even more experience before they're doing the hands-on work. So the immigration context today, as I think all of you probably are seeing and hearing about, is very awful. When I think about trying to explain the current enforcement system, I think there's a lot of ways to think about immigration enforcement along some kind of spectrum. You could start with a place where you have no immigration enforcement. You say, that's not a priority. We're not going to really go after anybody who's here, who's a non-citizen. When you kind of go along the spectrum, and when people talk about different presidencies, different administrations, and that they're all harmful to immigrants, I do agree with that, but I think we can talk about this spectrum. Another type of enforcement priority focuses on people who have violent crimes, right? So you say, well, we'll find people who have violent crimes, and those are the people that we will go after to deport. The next one would be crimes of any sort. The next one after that is any illegal status, right? So no crimes, but your crime is that you're here without documents. The next one is people with active status, where you're trying to find ways to deport, and on to the other things, which are things like visa holders, green card holders, people with status who are being harmed. We are in that last category right now, right? There is nobody who has an immigration status that isn't currently concerned. There are people, I'm a naturalized US citizen. I talked in the Globe last week about thinking about maybe I should be carrying a passport card with me just in case, because the Supreme Court recently said that you can stop someone based on skin color, language, perceived ethnicity, so perceived race, location. And so, you know, a naturalized citizen could, when I'm speaking to my parents in Telugu, I could come off as someone who satisfies some of these categories and is able to be stopped. So I think that's the current situation we're in. To give kind of a real world feel to some of this, we have a client in the clinic who we have represented since 2019, just a teenager. When I met him, came to the US for medical treatment. So back and forth between his home country and the United States, coming for medical treatment. Eventually, on a visa, overstayed, sought asylum, has a pending asylum case based on his sexual orientation and the gang violence in his country. Recently, with a pending asylum claim, this was just 3 weeks ago, on the way to work at a hospital, he was stopped by 4 cars, 8 officers at 7 in the morning, taken to Burlington. That's where the ICE facility is locally in Massachusetts. Within 24 hours, taken to Buffalo to an ICE facility there. 1 week later, taken to Louisiana, where he's currently being held. So very hard to even talk about, someone I've known for 6 years that we've been working on his case. Since his detention and all of these moves, we have worked on his case. And so this is the hard part, but the sort of amazing part is that because of my administrative roles, right, that you saw, one of my former students is running my cases, who's an attorney at Greater Boston Legal Services, immigration clinic student from the first year that we opened in 2017 with Professor Rachel Rosenblum. We founded the clinic, and this was one of our first students who's now an immigration attorney at Greater Boston Legal Services and running our cases. And I think maybe even some of you might have taught her. Ann Georges, she is running the case and she's working on it with students. So I'm sort of overseeing, she's running the cases, she's working on it with a student. And so you see this kind of, I think what we do best at Northeastern is teach and supervise this next generation. So just to give you an update, the sort of situation we're in is almost a month. No charges were filed until this past Friday. We have filed a parole request with ICE. That was denied. And next Tuesday, there is a bond hearing on dangerousness and flight risk that we're going to be arguing remotely. In Louisiana, the student is going to be making the argument as we do in the clinics. So a very important moment. I'm very hopeful that the immigration judge will grant bond and let the client come back to his community here in Massachusetts. So, but that's kind of the work that we're doing in the clinics. That's the kind of importance. We also have that family violence immigration practicum I mentioned. That's being run by another one of my former students. I think you're seeing a pattern here. I don't know if HR has a problem with the fact that I probably shouldn't talk about this, but I'm like Northeastern student, I know them. So, but we kind of bring in these students who are doing amazing work. And right now, since the clinic opened in 2017, we have 150 clinic graduates out there practicing. And I would say around 80 to 90% of them are practicing immigration law. The rest are using immigration in their practice, right? They're criminal defense attorneys who do immigration work, or even they're at law firms and doing immigration work on the pro bono side. So it's really something that makes me proud. It makes me feel old, but it makes me feel very proud. The last thing I want to talk about is just some of the initiatives we're able to do. One of the things that's happening is the fees are going up for everything. So asylum seekers now have to pay a yearly fee to keep their claim alive. Employment authorization, which is a simple form. It's a one-page form you send in, they send you back a card. That used to cost $500. It's going to be closer to $1,000 each time that you do that. Citizenship applications are going up. Green card applications are going up. I know there's always a negative. There's a positive to all of this, which is that since the clinic opened, we have never not been able to pay for a client's application fee. And that is through the generosity of people who have donated to the clinic. And Miel and Lindsay, and Miel in particular, who is such a champion of the clinics and constantly emailing me, like, here's someone, oh, I just got a $500 gift for you. I got a $10,000 gift for you, whatever it is. I put that to use. Again, I don't think anyone from finance is here. We have paid people's groceries. We have paid people's rent when they're about to be evicted to keep their claims alive. And we have been able to pay every single fee for every single client since 2017. And then the last thing that funding does is we're able to run kind of special trips. So if you see in the Alumni magazine that we were able to send students to the border to work for a week, supervised by a Northeastern law graduate who's an immigration attorney, and going to a organization at the border and meeting up with a Northeastern law graduate, former clinic student who's doing work at the border. And the students said that was an invaluable experience where they got to actually go to detention centers and do the work at the border and see what was happening and bring that experience back. Here, we're running it again in the spring, and we're hoping that that can be something we do yearly. We pay for everything for the students so that it's not, your privilege doesn't affect whether you can go on this trip. So we pay for travel, lodging, and anything else, interpretation, and everything else that comes with that. So thank you for joining. Thanks for listening to me. I'm always like the downer when I talk about immigration or if I'm at a cocktail party. But please come find me after. I'd love to meet as many of you as possible. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. It is an honor to be here. I have been at Northeastern. This is my third year, so quite junior in my career, but amongst great professors. And one of the things that I noticed as soon as I arrived at Northeastern was how integral to the community the Domestic Violence Institute was. I started working here, and the number of people that reached out asking for help was tremendous. And so my goal when I came to Northeastern was, I'm going to make this a large institute, and I want to have more people working with me. And so it is an amazing accomplishment that we now are going to be able to hire a staff attorney and a part-time social worker to join the institute, thanks to the large donation that we've received. And being able to have an attorney work alongside me means that we hopefully will have more students be able to take the clinic. At the moment, I have more than like 45 applications, not to toot my own horn, but, and I can only accept 8. This semester I took 9, and I would like to take more. So if I have a staff attorney working with me, there is that demand. We are a litigation clinic. The students enroll in the clinic and are thrown in the courtroom sometimes the second day of the semester. But they join the clinic knowing that they want to represent survivors, that they're going to get that real life experience. They will be able to interview clients and counsel them and go to court and actually be the lead attorney. And that's something that is unique about our clinical experience. They don't get that experience in a co-op setting. They get to be a lead attorney, and oftentimes it's very daunting to the students, but they get to be the ones that do an entire trial, and I'm next to them. I've had judges whisper, "Counsel, please take a seat. Your students have got this." But they're able to go to argue motions. On Monday, we are going to family court, and my students are arguing 3 motions first thing Monday morning. But our clinic, when I came, I had really large shoes to fill, but I also wanted to make it my own. And one of the things that was important to me was that when survivors come, they all have different needs, and I didn't want to only help them with, let's say, their restraining order. And so we adapt and we take on whatever additional cases they may have. And so that might mean that we help them with their immigration case. So we'll do domestic violence-based immigration relief cases. We might help their children with their special immigrant juvenile status cases. And representing them in the family court portion. We will do divorces, custody, and you name it. And so that's been something that I've wanted to maintain, having that holistic approach so that when someone comes, they're not having to keep on searching for additional counsel. We also have a number of clients that come back, and that's important. We've made such a good impression on them that they come back and they see this law school as a law firm that operates for them, and having the resources to have access to their files. So they show up on a Friday afternoon and they are asking for their entire file. Being able to provide that for them has been really wonderful. So in addition to the types of cases that the students work on, we also have various partnerships in the community. So we partner with Kids in Need of Defense for the special immigrant juvenile status cases. When as a result of the recent change in our administration, I have spoken with our students and asked them how they would feel about taking 50% of our caseload being immigration-based. And they all, of course, were right, agreed that there is a need. And so we partner with Kids in Need of Defense and have brought guest speakers that are Northeastern alums to provide trainings. We work alongside them. We also partner with Saheli, which is an organization that services Southeast Asian and Arab immigrant survivors. And so we conduct trainings for them, but we also, it's an avenue of us receiving referrals. And so we're able to conduct these, have these partnerships, and that's one of the ways that we're able to continue to be known in the community and help those most vulnerable survivors. Every single October, we put on a Domestic Violence Awareness Month panel. And so this year, we're collaborating with the Mass Bar and bringing a number of panelists that are experts in family law, and they'll discuss various issues that the students are interested in. One of the issues that they're interested in this year is, no surprise, intersection of family law and immigration. But in addition to that, this month, we're having survivors come to our class every single week. And that has been something that the students have found to be the most impactful experience that they've had their entire law school career. So I can stand there and explain to them the impacts of domestic violence, how broken our courts are, but actually being able to hear from survivors the way our courts don't work for them, the issues that they've had, has left such an impression on our students. And we've actually been able to bring back one of the DV clinic's former clients to come and speak to our students. And she still talks about how amazing her experience was when she was represented by our clinic. And actually, we're unfortunately going to have to work with her again because the abuser has been violating the restraining order that she has. And so the idea is that we're flexible in terms of what our clients need, what our students want out of the experience, and so that's kind of along what Hemanth was saying. It's my clinic is also a bit of a downer, but one of the things that we do to make the experience better for our clients and our students is that we host a Halloween party every October, and so in a couple of, I think it's less than 2 weeks now, we're having a Halloween party. And for a lot of our clients that are immigrants, they don't have anyone to celebrate. They don't have the funds to buy Halloween costumes. So we, play a movie, have decorations, arts and crafts. And I just asked some of our children clients about, like, do you remember coming? And they said, yes, I remember all the candy I got to walk out of here with. But that's something that brings some levity to this type of work, and that's important. I want to encourage as many of my students to go and do this work, and I try to have that balance. And so these little things, obviously, we're hosting this party, we're having food and costumes, we're potentially paying for their transportation to come to the law school. But this is something that our clients and their children appreciate so much so, in addition to what we do with them when we're in the courthouse. We also this semester, I think I must have willed being able to hire a social worker, but we have a social work practicum student that's working with my clinic, and it's been the most amazing experience so far. She's able to meet with our children clients, but also survivors, and she does art therapy with the children in our clinic space. She has been meeting with survivors and is then identifying some of the needs that they may have and brings them back to me of what, they're not able to afford groceries because of X, Y, and Z. And so that's been such a helpful resource. And our goal is that we're going to also start some support groups. So host them either in person at the law school or on Zoom for some of our survivors. And so there is a mental health crisis in the Boston area. There's not enough providers. So being able to have one here is going to be so helpful. We've had clients wait for 6 months to be able to have a therapist. And so being able to have someone here able to help them when they go through something ensures that our survivors don't feel like they're left behind. And so on that note, I think I've spoken about all that we do. But yes, please come find me during the reception. I'm happy to chat further about all that we do.
So amazing to hear about all the fantastic things happening here. I work here. I'm here every day. And yet I feel like every time I learn something new or I get really excited and super proud about something amazing that you all are doing, that our students are doing, that our community is doing together. So thank you for all of that. Would the three of you mind joining me here? We're going to have a little bit of a Q&A. We have a few moments. We are running a smidge behind, which is good, right? Because we just enjoy being together. So we do have a few minutes for Q&A if anyone has a question for any of our amazing faculty members. It could be for an individual faculty member, all of them together. Oh, okay, wonderful. And we do have to share a mic, so I'm going to be running back and forth.
Hi, thank you. Hi, thank you. It's great to be back here, class of 1990. I retired as a lawyer from my day jobs, and now I'm volunteering with the ACLU, and we get calls all day for people who need help of various kinds: domestic violence, immigration, housing, you name it. How do I refer people to your clinics, or do you not have room? That sort of thing. So talk about the actuality of getting your clients, please. Thank you.
Well, I think as many or all of you know, in immigration enforcement, there is no Gideon. So clients are not guaranteed an attorney the way they are in the criminal justice system. So the need for immigration attorneys is far greater than the demand, or the demand is far greater than the amount that we have currently. So we take cases. We have an email address. You can. I'm the face of the clinic. Yeah, my cell. I will give you after. No. But we take some cases. We also partner with Greater Boston Legal Services, the PAIR Project, and even in the past Kind, which Professor Bearat also works with. And so we get clients either through other organizations or directly through us. But the reality is that the demand is really, really high, and particularly now where when I did the spectrum, right, when you go farther and farther along the spectrum, then the need is much greater.
Yeah, you can email me. But I would say that the availability that we have varies the time of year. Always feel free to send me an email. Our students are always hungry for more work. So I say, you ask for it, you'll get it. But with that being said, obviously, there's sometimes some parameters of why we can't take a case or whatnot.
Other question? No one else. Oh, perfect.
Hi, my name is Mitch Genzer, class of 1980. So I was a children's attorney for many years out in California, and doing that work, got pretty complex. And one of the things that I want to raise that may seem tangential, but it's really not, public interest can be defined in many ways. So one of the things that I want to ask the three of you, and probably most relevant to Hemanth in light of your role of assistant dean, how do you deal with the diversity of voices, and do you welcome the diversity of voices in Northeastern these days in light of the environments that we all confront? Because it's my contention that one of the greatest needs we have is to continue to bridge the gaps and not have encampments where no one feels welcome.
Want to start again?
That has certainly been a challenge, and I think part of what we try to do is I think we have a lot of discussions among faculty about what is our mission as a law school, what are our goals, what does public interest mean in a lot of different areas. One of the things that we try to keep open for, I'm just thinking of two examples, is one is I think I've always seen a divide in criminal justice and then also immigration. Would you ever work for the government? Or is it only a Northeastern value to not work for the government and to work for the survivor or the victim? And I think that's a conversation we try to have all the time. And also, how do we reach across this divide? Because obviously right now the divide we have is very, very big. And so these are conversations we're constantly having with faculty in our faculty discussions, and also thinking about how do we teach this generation? I mean, there's so many issues. There's mental health crisis, a massive mental health crisis among our students. I think one that's not talked about enough is phone addiction, which has kind of ruined students' ability to concentrate. Most of them have laptops up in class. Can we ban laptops? These are the kinds of discussions that we're having. So I think we're constantly trying to talk about that, but also recognizing, with 50 full-time faculty members, another 50, 60, another 100 part-time faculty members, we're not going to all agree, but we can kind of come out to some idea of shared values that are important. But I think the ones you're raising are ones I'm talking to the dean almost weekly in our weekly meetings about these issues, because they're so important.
So I would just add to what Hemanth said, and that one way of getting students to appreciate the need to talk across divides and to realize that divides are part of life is to teach the fundamental principles, right? So those are not going to change. What they're here for: the due process, integrity, honesty, justice, equal protection. Those basic fundamental principles, which indeed, those have to be the basis for any conversation. And they help students, focusing on those fundamental students also helps students appreciate that the politics are there, but there's also this thing called neutral legal principles that they're here to learn about, instantiate, and carry forward into the profession. On the question of what's in the public interest or public interest lawyering, I think that from my perspective, I've always considered any governmental lawyer is working in the public interest. Judges are working in the public interest. Prosecutors, attorney generals, all these are public interest careers for which we are training our lawyers. So the political divide doesn't affect our understanding of the kinds of careers in which we want our students to be well trained and to aspire to.
Yeah, I'll just add one more thing too. I think that reminding students that your first job isn't define whether you're a public interest lawyer or not. And I think there's sometimes a little bit. So I started at a law firm, right? I had to pay loans. I'm an immigrant, right? I mean, there's lots of reasons why you might start in one place. So I think also understanding people's kind of realities, that they might not be able to immediately do public interest, or that they don't ever want to do something that's traditionally defined as public interest, but they take the public interest ethos into everything that they do in their lives, in their work, and in their community.
It doesn't have to be through your job. It can be through extracurricular activities or working with alums or mentoring the next generation, et cetera. So that's great. Did you want to add or? Wait, do we have a question? Oh, wonderful. This is great. I'm getting my steps in.
I know I did that, so.
Just in case.
Hi, I'm Shalonda Baker and class of 2005. Great to see. I have a question about what it means to teach law right now. In a context in which law itself seems to be evolving, and some of our students are coming in to the classroom with a lot of skepticism and cynicism about the meaning of law, the value of law, being a lawyer. How do you address that concern in the classroom these days?
I'd like to nominate Margaret.
I thought I said something about that, but maybe I wasn't as clear as I needed to be. You know, which is this is the best time to study, to be in a law school. This is, you know, this is a golden moment for lawyers and for the profession, because yeah, absolutely, kill all lawyers not, right? Because if you do that, then the deluge. So I think you know, recognizing, appreciating, acknowledging students' anxiety about the political moment is critically important, but also getting them to appreciate that across, you know, that first of all, that this is a moment, that history is long, that this too, with the help of lawyers and the rule of law and the reinforcement of the rule of law and a recommitment to democracy, that this too will pass, and that their job while they're here in this building is certainly, you know, to understand what it means to be a member of this profession, not just in this moment, but over time, right? And so I actually think this is a really great time to be teaching law. I'm sorry, Shalonda. Shalonda was my student. Then she came back and she taught law here. So nice to see you again.
I think we have time for one last question.
Yeah, do you ever get red hats applying to the school? Yeah.
I think we have a wide variety of folks with different political affiliations and values and all of that jazz. Right. And that's kind of, you know, the neutrality of you got to teach all the different. Why am I talking? Do you ever get red hats?
Being in administration, the answer is yes. But yeah, I mean, I think part of it is sticking to what we hold as values, and you know, for example, when I talk about immigration, I show a speech of Bill Clinton saying a whole bunch of anti-immigrant stuff, and to remind people that this isn't about politics. And so, you know, obviously some professors, what they teach is about the political aspect of it, but I think that I try to stay grounded in facts, and I think that that always sets me free on whoever I'm teaching.
All right. Well, thank you so much.